Guys, our videos always primarily stick to being either deck profiles, live duels, tech times, or discussion videos. And in this video, this is a discussion video to try to help players become better players. So let's get into it. What's going on, guys? Pegasus and Wise guys. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure you sub, make sure you hit the bell. Guys, this video is designed, and the upcoming video is designed to try to help you guys become better players. I'm not the best player. I'm not trying to say I'm the best player. This is literally just me trying to help with something that helped me understand myself better. And if you understand yourself better, obviously you'll play better. Guys, this first part, I'm talking specifically about a way that you learn, the method in which you learn, and the optimal ways in which you learn that you have to understand of yourself before you can carry it over. Guys, specifically that acronym is Vark, and Vark stands for visual, auditory, read and write, and kinesthetic ways that you learn. Now, visual specifically relies, and I'm sure some of you guys that have been part of the page, you've seen me do this in a video before, but I'm doing this again because we have so many new subscribers. Visual specifically means the visual way that you learn. So some people, when they're learning, maybe you're thinking back to your high school days, maybe you're thinking back to ways that you've learned something, ways that you learn a deck, ways that you learn a new deck, the way that you play it. Maybe you have to specifically see people playing it visually, whether that be DB Grinder, shout out to him, whether that be other things, Zephyr War Games and his live duels that he does, Winner Kills, Cali Effect, etc., where you have to see it specifically in action to be able to understand, okay, this is how this interacts with this is how this interacts with this. Obviously, you can learn in multiple other ways that are outside of this, but these are just the four that are the most primary in life in general. Visual is really, really important to the eyes, obviously. That's what visual obviously means. If you didn't know, I'm sure you guys knew that. I'm not expanding or exploding on some secret that you guys didn't know. I'm literally just trying to explain that visual, if you can learn that way, you may be awesome at really being able to perceive something. Perception is really key to you to be able to say, oh, okay, this is how they do this is how they do this. All right, cool, got it. That's pretty much that. Auditory means that you learn through your hearing. Auditory means hearing. Obviously, a lot of the times this won't really matter as much in Yu-Gi-Oh! However, it still is a way. Maybe you specifically like to hear Lithium's voice. No, I'm not judging. You know, it's 2021. I'm not judging. Maybe you learn a specific way where you have to hear something in a specific way. Maybe your friend that you've been friends with for 10 years, they say, hey bro, this deck can normal summon 3 times a turn and do this and X, and then, you know, that like the first time I heard about Flunderies. I heard it. That was a way that I said, oh, what does it do? Okay, they banish themselves, they chain block, they do what? That's an example of hearing it, auditory, that can help you understand yourself better and being able to use both your hearing and your vision to be able to understand better what in the world you're trying to learn or pick up. Now, obviously, in that specific scenario, on the auditory part, I hadn't quite sat down with the deck yet, but I had still heard about it, and I still processed it a little bit. That's where I'm coming at with that. Read and write, obviously you guys know about read and write. Maybe that back in high school, you guys had to take notes all day. I hated that, and I don't learn that way. That's my weakest one. I'm using myself as an example. That's my weakest one. I don't like trying to write out combos. I'd be like, what the hell are you doing? That's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Some people may have to learn like that. That's just how it is. Some people learn specifically by being able to read it, read the card, say, then they can process it. Okay, how do I make this go? How do I make this go this way? How do I make my optimal theory go the way that I want it to? Maybe you need to read and write down combos. Some people, I've seen that before. It's rare, but I've seen that before where people have to write down combos. Not trying to expose anybody's secret, but I've seen a few Kansas City players do that. That may be just the way that they learn. I can't really say anything about it. That's not the way that I learn, and that's definitely my weakest one. I don't ever like to do that. I just like to play. But sometimes you may need to explain a combo, and that's where read and write would come in, wouldn't it? Kinesthetic is where you have to get the deck in the hand. Now this one is me. And shout out to Jeff McIntosh. Shout out to Akeem. There's so many other great Kansas City players that I learned this from. Is I don't know a damn thing until the deck is in my hands. Now obviously I heard it about Flunderies. That was cool. I saw it being played on DB Grinder and so many other channels. But I just did not have it. And this is a lot of people in Yu-Gi-Oh! I didn't have it until it's in my hands. Because if it's in my hands, then I can do what I want to do to be able to adjust myself, acclimate myself to the deck, and then go from there. Now, one of these 4 categories, maybe all 4 of them, some people excel in one, some people can only learn in one, some people can learn in all 4. That is up to you. And with that being said, let's get into the second part of this video. I hope you learned something from that. Study up. Alrighty, guys, on the second part of this video, I wanted to talk about two different theories that are very, very important to me because it's really, really cool, and it helped me to learn Texas Hold'em poker a long, long time ago. And I'm trying, as a disclaimer, to bring it over to Yu-Gi-Oh, and that is game theory optimal versus exploitative. Now, game theory optimal is a specific way that you play cards. I'm using cards in general, but for Yu-Gi-Oh, I'm going to use decks to try to help explain it. And basically, GTO basically means that it is not possible to beat you, but it is possible to beat the player in and of itself. You can beat me, the player, but you can't beat the strategy that I have. So let's say I'm playing Sword Soul and I'm playing the Go First version where I'm specifically making Chow Fang every single time. That's my theory. I'm sticking to it. I plan on making Chow Fang to lock you out of lights every single time. Maybe you expect Drytron before you even go into a tournament. That would be an example of exploitative. But for now, let's stick with game theory optimal. Game theory optimal says I'm going to make Chow Fang first, and then I'm going to go into my Sword Soul stuff afterwards. Or I'm going to open up a Sword Master every single time, and then I'm going to play my deck after that completely freely without even having to worry about anything. That, guys, is optimal. I already know as a baseline what the deck is trying to do, what it's going to try to set up to do. These are the cards that I have in my hand. That's what I'm running with going into a tournament. That's usually what a lot of people do for a tournament. Exploitative, however, exploitative is basically leaning everything that you're doing on what everybody else is doing going into a tournament. So let's use an example. When I played Infernoids a couple weeks ago, and I'm not trying to use myself as an example, this is just the most recent idea that I could come up with. Exploitative is that I was playing a go second version of Infernoids where I'm pretty much banking on everybody wants to go first. Everybody's playing an extra deck where they want to touch their extra deck, and for therefore Void, Imagination, and cards like that are devastating to your opponent. And obviously you have to have other board breaking cards to go in there with that, as you guys saw in that profile. Now with exploitative, it obviously depends a lot more on what your opponent is doing, and it can definitely wildly swing in one way or the other. So let's explain what I mean. Let's say when I went down to Springfield for the tournament, shout out to Collectomaniacs, it was a really fun tournament. But let's say in that tournament I had planned to play Infernoids, and I'm like, all right, everybody's playing extra decks. I know that everybody is gearing up to play these specific decks, or they really love Virtual World for this tournament. They really love Sky Striker for this tournament. I'm just using a random example. It could be anything. I pretty much knew that, and I didn't expect a specific deck like Altergeist or something to come and throw a monkey wrench into my entire day, if you get what I mean. Obviously, I was planning on playing decks to touch their extra deck all day long. I banked on that, and I was right. Exploitative can be completely wrong because I could have ran into Subterra Guru all day, Altergeist all day, and many other back row decks that don't give a rat's ass about touching their extra deck. That's what I mean by exploitative. Now, how did the two tie together? Well, let's talk about it. Many may ask, well, is one better than the other? Is it better to do one way? Is it better to do the other way? I don't think either one is better than each other. I feel like you need a little bit of a blend of both of them, and that's where I feel that they both tie together. I always play Infernoids, so sometimes I will have a game theory optimal, as I used before, because I may have a theory of I'm going second regardless. Or I may have a theory of I'm going first regardless. I can play Prosperity, I can play Pot of Duality, I can play extra cards to help me dig deeper to get to the trap card, Void Feast, that is the power win condition when I'm going first. Whereas if I'm going second, I'm usually going to lean towards the exploitative end of things because it's the less practical thing, and it's me basing my deck off of specifically what I expect to see in said tournament, and then going from there to try to do what? Exploit it. The issue with trying to carry that strategy over after trying to tie the two together is that in Yu-Gi-Oh, guys, each deck has its own interaction. I'm sure you guys realize there's like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14,000 cards right now. It's a lot more than poker, right? Right, it's obvious. So then you're pretty much basing everything off of something that is always going to be a sliding scale. However, within Yu-Gi-Oh, there are definitely overarching theories within decks. Have you guys noticed how long that Lancia has been in your side deck? Have you guys noticed how often Evenly Matched goes into your side deck? There's always going to be theories. If you're playing against a control deck and they commit everything and they don't really have protection, then evenly matched is always going to be devastating. Lightning Storm is always going to be devastating unless you have the answer that is a spell card, etc., etc. Whereas when you go the other route and there are no patterns in any kind of way, well, then you're just kind of praying and you're hoping that the strategy in and of itself that is meta or the most effective tactic available is good enough to get you there. Now, most of the times, that's just what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is most of the time Konami making another deck that is really, really meta or a retrained version of the old deck. Like, let's say Flunderies is the new Monarchs, it's the new True Draco. So pretty much you have a theory that you can go with, game theory optimal, that you can go back to and look at and go from there. Maybe you had a specific way that you played Monarchs that also worked when you played True Draco, that also worked when you played Flunderies, which I bet you are a lot of fun at locals because people probably hate your guts. Now, with the danger of exploitation pretty much basing everything on what your opponent is doing, a deck like Cyframe is another good example of that. You're basing everything on what your opponent is doing, so then you have to pretty much build your deck to try to exploit what everybody else is doing and then going from there. Which one is better? I don't think either one is better. I think you have to have a happy blend between the two when deck building. And then from there, you have to pretty much carry everything from that over into the tournament and then hope it gets there. I do feel that if you are planning to play an exploitative deck, a go second deck maybe you're playing the new Sword Soul version of the deck that it doesn't give a shit about anything, right? You pretty much have to stack everything on the hopes that that theory will work in theory by exploiting everything else that everybody else is doing. See how that all tied together? I hope this doesn't sound like a bunch of gibberish, but this literally is the best way that I could help explain something without going into the deep math details as far as poker is concerned and try to bring that over to Yu-Gi-Oh! That just would have been almost impossible. I hope this, guys, has helped you to help pick your deck better or help understand what you're trying to do going into a tournament. And I'll see you next time. Make sure you come back to the page because we have plenty of content coming. You guys got the update. I'll see you next time. I'm out. YG, baby. Pegasus out. Ciao.